I've reached a lot of the goals that I wanted to reach. And so the next steps are, how do I fine tune it? Right? How do I prepare for those times? Because, for me, there's a little bit of a counting clock, right? I probably got, I don't know, about 20 years left in this body, right? To be moving around and with the same energy and whatnot. Maybe less, but I'm counting on a good 20,
Mhm.
right? And probably another 10 after that when my brain's going to keep working, right? So, but I recognize that, there's something at the end, even if I can't see it, I know it's there. And so, how do I prepare for that? How do I prepare for those times where I'm not, but see, that's my thoughts. That might be your
Mhm.
thoughts, but sometimes there's folks who do not see the forest through the trees, and they're so focused on what's in front of them that it's hard for them to recognize what might be around the corner or what might be above them, right? If they're looking or even behind them, right? With that perspective. And so, and it happens with young folks, it happens with folks who are burnt out, it happens with folks who just really their personality is that let me go straight forward and I'm dealing with what's in the moment, right? In
Mhm.
um in a Myers-Briggs parlance, it'd be an S, right? An S.
Mhm.
People with an S in their Myers-Briggs, they're looking in the moment. What's in front of me? That's what's most important. So they compartmentalize the moment. The moment's over. The next moment, right? And so sometimes that's hard to see what's past those moments. And so, connecting people to things larger than the moment are so important. We've talked about different motivation, models. Spitzer's model, he says there's 8 motivators at work, right? Being active, being part of something, not being micromanaged, building your skill set, being part of a team, right? Being appreciated, accomplishing goals, right? When we connect, our what we're doing at work to those personally, we are more motivated, more engaged, but then also linking what an employee does to the overall goal of the organization is just as important. And if we can do that, then they know even the things they think are tedious or mundane, if I have to do, um, if I have to process something, if I've got a bunch of, semi-annual reports I need to do, or closeouts, or anything else that I need to do, there's just one after the other. Why is this important? Well, if I don't do this timely, it's going to affect the quality of care for the folks that we serve, right? And so if that's something that somebody can latch onto and didn't even think about it in that way, what does a payroll specialist have to do with a client that's on, CalFresh and Medi-Cal? Well, if they don't get their the payroll out to those workers, the workers aren't going to be as satisfied and happy. They might be in bunker mode. How am I going to pay my own bills? Which might keep them from being able to be as efficient. So even folks in support positions that don't even work directly with clients play a very big role in contributing to the overall mission and vision of an organization, right? And so that's, how do we connect those folks to those visions and missions? Well, what do you think is the hardest challenge there with that, to, connecting folks to mission and visions?
I think there's like a couple of components to it. Number one, I think a lot of times companies, organizations, teams even will create like this super great vision statement, right? With all of these powerful words like partnerships, self-sufficiency, thriving communities. And it looks great on paper, but they either just make it a one-off or like we're unveiling our vision statement or our mission statement, and then it just becomes like the Pledge of Allegiance. It's there, but are we living it? Probably not. Um, the other part of that is that the vision is developed, but then the processes, the roads to the vision are not aligned with what the vision actually is. So if I say, like, for example, our mission or our vision is to provide immaculate customer service to everybody who calls our call center. And then we're also saying, but do it in 7 minutes or less. Then like the reality and the vision like aren't aligned with each other, which dilutes the vision, and people start focusing on the process instead of the vision. So part of, I think, the value of creating the vision or creating purpose in your work is to like really come up with a genuine, like, here's why we're here. This is our goal. This is, maybe we don't achieve it, right? Like in human services, our goal is always to eliminate poverty and abuse. We may never ever achieve that in this lifetime, right? We may never get rid of poverty. We may never get rid of abuse, but that doesn't mean that we're not moving in that direction every single time. So like really kind of identifying what it is that you're there for, what's the reason for your existence, and then kind of empowering people to work towards that goal, right? Or work towards that vision or make decisions that support it. So it's great to have a process. I really think it's important for us to have like policies and procedures and structure in the way that we approach the work. But a lot of times we processize. I don't know if that's a real word, but we're going to make it a real word. Processize, that's your Tiffany's word of the day. But we make everything so process driven in the way that we approach the work that we forget why we're doing it. And in my opinion, in my perspective, that's where a lot of companies get it wrong, is that they're spending so much time telling people like what to do and how to do it, that they're never connecting it back to why we're doing it or the value or the purpose of it. So going back to your idea of like processing reports, like, yes, we have to process reports. And if we're just like, you got to get all your reports processed by deadline, that's not really connecting to like the value of that. The value of this is maintaining the integrity of our programs, making sure the right people are getting the help, making sure that we're being great stewards of taxpayer money. It's making sure that people get their benefits on the time that they're supposed to get it to avoid hardship in their families. Like these are why we do it, but that's not what we talk about. That's not how information is communicated. And then again, we have people who are frustrated, like, I processed 28 reports and they're telling me I got to do 27 more. But what we're not talking about is like, yes, but you have an opportunity to help 27 more families or 27 more people get out of this conundrum that they're in. Um, the actions don't align with the vision half the time, is what I'm trying to say. I'm gonna land that plane.
Yeah, you know, I hear you, and that's a tough one, and thinking about how we get them aligned, because we know aligning people will create, more engagement. But you know, one of my favorite shows is The Bear. You ever watch The Bear,
I love
Tiff?
the bear. I love the bear. I've
Yeah.
watched like the first couple seasons. That's it.
Okay. Well, then I'm not going to ruin anything for you. But in the third season, the restaurant burns down, and I'm kidding, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. It doesn't burn down. And so, in the third season, they have a episode focused primarily on Tina, right? So one of the
Mhm.
workers in the bear, and she talks about how she got to the bear, and her other job laid her off. She was looking for work, but um, they kept hiring people that are younger or not as brown, right, and other things like that. And
Mhm.
so she went into the bear and bought a sandwich and started crying into her sandwich. And then the owner of the bear, not Carmi, but Carmi's brother before he passed, right, came and talked to her. And they were talking about um, you know, why he does what he loves to do. And he said, I love serving people and I don't want to be stuck in one of those buildings in downtown and things like that. And she said, I just want to take care of my family. right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you could see the difference in the purposes, right? But I want to provide service for people. I just want to take care of my family. Well, we know that those are two distinct, different motivations, right? I want to provide for my family is an external motivator, right? External motivators are the things we have to do to be able to live the lifestyle we want to live. That's what my dad taught me. If you want to make a
Mm-hmm.
certain,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to live a certain lifestyle, you have to make the according amount of money, right? So I decided I wanted to be poor, and so I got into social work. But oh, that's the joke I was helping. But so we do specific. I love what we do, Tiff. I love what we do, but
Mm-hmm.
I also love air conditioning. I love, having to put gas in my car to be able to get to where I need to go, right? And the internet that we have to be able to put on this, podcast for our 58 followers, right? So, you know, those things are important to me, but those are external factors, right? Also known as hygiene factors. That's what
Mm-hmm.
Hertzberg calls them, hygiene factors. Hygiene factors will get you to work. They will get you to show up to work pretty regularly, and they will get you to stay at work, but they will not make you work harder when you're at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are those things that make you work harder, right? That sense of this is what I want to do at work, right? I want to help people. I want to be in a room all by myself with no one else and just be able to process reports. If that's what makes somebody happy, find that job, right? I want to communicate to other people. Cool. So if the job that you're doing, if you can find a way to do that, right? My number one value is impact. I want to help people. I want to make a difference. I've always been like that, right? And my grandma was a social worker and worked at, recycling plants, and we walked past the Giant Stadium the other night, and we walked past an old entrance way into a building. And I remember when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, driving with my grandma in her big blue van, where she would pick up newspaper and cardboard, in that she would back into that, and they would, on a platform, just drop stuff off to her. So I mean, and then after that, she'd go serve her soup at St. Anthony's Dining Hall in San Francisco, right? So, those are things
Mm-hmm.
that I remember as a kid. So I think that's always been something I've connected, where I want to help people. I want to help them realize their goals. I want them. So getting into human services, I never expected to be a social worker. But then when I was there, I was like, okay, so this ties into my overall value system and who I want to be. So regardless of how hard it is and how frustrating it is and how tedious it can be and all those other things like that, I wanted to be the best that I could be. Right. And then also how do I want to reach more people? Like we've talked about this a few times with our origin stories, right? Every superhero has an origin story, right? So, I came into the county not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. I just needed a job, and I found out that people in my position got to teach clients how to find work. Oh yeah, that will help them and their families a lot more, right? So whatever it is you're doing, if there's something that connects to your values, there's something that connects to your purpose, right? I just want to feed my family. Cool. Once that's satisfied, what helps you to want to do more? And if, as leaders, it is our job to make sure that people are working to connect what they're doing with why they're doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your job. Half of your job is the skill that you have at your job, and the other half of it is how much you like your job, right? Or what fulfillment and enjoyment do you get out of it, right? And so that's something that's so important, that helps people. When you feel like you are being fulfilled at your job, you will do your job better, right? And so, what is it that you want to do? You're working at the fry machine. Hey, I don't want to, this is a good job. I'm here. It's feeding my family, but, maybe I want to work at the register, or maybe I want to work, on the other assembly line, building the enchiritos or whatever else it is, just so I have a better understanding of what it is I want to do. And maybe in the meanwhile, I'll take an online, economics class, so that, when the job comes up, if I want to be a leader, I have an understanding of how the restaurant works, not just in the back, but also overall in terms of how we man things. Or, you know what? I want to. stay here with the job until I get another job, right? Whatever it is. What is it that I want to do? What's allowing me to do this? What's keeping me here, but also thinking about I want to be here too. So how do I get there? And as a leader, just recognizing where do you want to be? Asking your folks,
Mhm.
how's this working for you? Are you happy? What would make you happier? Right? Where do you see yourself when you're at your happiest or most fulfilled? Here. And if it's not here, it's okay. We'll fill your position, but let me help you get to where you're going to want to flourish, right? And that's something that I've had a few managers in my life, tell me, hey, look, what you're doing right here is okay, but I think there might be something that's better for you. What would you want to do? Which is, you know, some of it's allowed me to create this business that we do for myself, right? And to do that more often, which really does make me feel more fulfilled. And I don't come home from my job complaining. I don't come
Mhm.
home from my job complaining about a 13-hour day. I don't because it was such a good class, right? And I'm doing what I want to
Mhm.
do. I'm not sitting there, it being tedious, right? Or if I'm done with the class and I start working on another class and maybe not get done building that class till 10, 11 o'clock at night, which will probably happen tonight, but just okay, but that's because that class that's coming up is going to be the bomb because I've spent the time on it. So
Mhm.
how do we, how do we help people recognize, yes, I'm here to feed my family, to pay my bills, have my medical insurance, but what else is there that would make me happier? And how can I realize that? I think that's a big disconnect. I mean, a lot of people that I talk to, they're disengaged. I mean, 70% of Americans are disengaged or actively disengaged, checked out at their job. And the number five reason why people leave a job is because their direct supervisor. The number four reason is because they're not fulfilled at their job. The number one is lack of work-life balance, right?
Mhm.
Two and three, two, they're leaving for more money, three, job security, right? So, just five, three of the top five are not necessarily having to do with money, right? And then when we're not in weird economic times, your manager and fulfillment are usually up at the top as well, right? So just think about how do we connect those folks to those things that they want to do? How can they realize those where they are now?
It's it's really kind of difficult to pinpoint it because it requires like a lot of self-awareness, and not everybody has self-awareness, right? Uh, I don't always have self-awareness. I'm sure you lack self-awareness in some areas as well. But it's like when people say, well, what motivates you? Like that's a deep rooted question because there's things that we may know on the surface that are motivating, but there are other things that maybe we're not aware of that either hold us back or propel us forward that we can't really like put a word on it. And so like from a leadership perspective, it's like this guessing game of like, how do I keep people motivated? How do I want them to come to work and do their job and feel
Yeah.
good about it, you know?
Well,
Um,
the problem is, but
and
the
it's
problem
not
is,
everybody's.
right, not
Mhm.
everyone is. 80% of people that are hired, they're hired because of their technical ability in their last job. So how good they did their last job. It's not about how good they might
Mhm.
be managing a team of people. So they come into the job highly skilled at
Right.
what they used to do, but don't do anymore. Right. So what do people
Hmm.
do? Well, I
Hmm.
was good at that. I don't do it anymore. So I'm going to do it and I'm going to be working with my staff because that's what I know how to do. That's my comfort zone. Not thinking about I'm managing people who used to do the job that I do, but how do I help them do that job better? So that's you pinpointed a huge thing. People are not that self-aware. I just wanted to make sure I checked. I had deodorant. You made me very self-aware right now in this moment, so I appreciate that. But just thinking about how do we get those folks who are in management jobs, supervisor job, middle management jobs. There's folks who are way up the totem pole that have been hired because of their excellence in what they've done before that still struggle with getting past their achievements and thinking about the achievements of the people that are underneath them and the
Hmm.
needs of those people underneath them. How do we activate that in them? You're right, self awareness. You said they're not self aware. You know, I wish a management job came with a self awareness chip that people could just put right there behind your ear that would automatically give you a little self awareness, a little bit of more emotional intelligence that's focus on your staff, what they need, right? I had a staff member one time who I used to take out to lunch all the time, just because she was supposed to be mine and she was transitioning from one manager to another, and that manager was dragging her heels and making that person's life miserable. So I would take her to lunch for staffing, and she would just complain and be frustrated. And like I'd talk to her about strategies she could do until it was done. And when I told my manager, she's like, "Well, why are you taking her to lunch? Why are you listening to her complain? I mean, you know, she has a job. She has a good job. I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, shouldn't she be happy? I mean, she has a job. She gets good paid good. Yes, but she's hired for this role that she really wants to do, but she's still stuck in the other role because that manager is having a hard time releasing her. And I'm just trying to keep her. I'm trying to keep her here, trying to keep her engaged and involved, right? And but
Yeah.
my boss didn't see it. She didn't understand why I was spending so much time with her. I'm like, isn't that kind of what a manager's role is, right? To help people to stay motivated and engaged. And if you don't see that, you know, it makes it much harder, much harder.
So I want to go like I feel like the management does have like a certain obligation to like understand, try to understand. But where I'm what I'm saying is like some people are not self-aware. Like
Mm-hmm.
let's say I'm your employee and you're my manager and you're like, Tiff, I noticed that you're a little disengaged. You know, you don't have the same pizzazz that you used to have. What is it that you need? I may not be able to articulate to you, like, I'm feeling underpaid, Carl. I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
unchallenged. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like, I may not have the self-awareness for you to be able to like get it straight from the horse's mouth of
Right,
what motivates me. But this is where I think like that empathy and social awareness starts to come in, where you have to sometimes do a little bit of trial and error. Like, what's going to work for this person? Do they need stretch assignments? Do they need more routine? Do they need more positive reinforcement? Do they need to be left alone? Like, I've got to kind of figure out like individually what every person needs, but I also can't have like the expectation that all I have to do is ask and they'll tell me. Sometimes that
right,
works, by the way. What do you need to be motivated? I need you to stay out of my face and tell me what you want from me and leave me alone and let me do it. Cool. Like I can meet you there. Um, but not everybody has the ability to understand like what gets them going. You know,
mm-hmm.
I was working with someone trying to look for a job. They were looking for work and, you know, they would make commitments and then they didn't, they would make like little goals and they wouldn't keep them. And I was like, well, what motivates you? And they're like, money. Okay, money motivates you. Cool. Like, what are you doing to get some money? Well, nothing. So money is not really a big motivator for you because if it was a big motivator for you, you'd be really going hard on looking for this job. So sometimes what people think is motivating to them is completely the opposite. And that's where that lack of self-awareness, it can't just be like an easy conversation.
Right,
Sometimes it's values, sometimes it's the hygiene factors, sometimes it's the other factors. It's just like there's no special secret formula that's going to be right for everybody.
right,
And sometimes the motivating factor is accountability. Sometimes the motivating factor is creating that discomfort for the sake of growth, to say you're disengaged, that you're in that 70% where you're not really putting in a whole lot of effort, like you're showing up and that's pretty much it. You're not really adding any value And I want to let you know that that's not okay, right? I'm not about exploiting people, but if you're paying them money to do work, like the least you can expect is that they do the work that you're paying them money for.
Yep.
And so if they're not, it's not about like punishment, but it's really about ownership that you are not doing like what you agreed to.
Yeah.
And what do
Well,
you
it's just like, well,
need? It can't all
yeah.
be from the employer. Yeah, and it can't all be from the employer.
Well, it's just like Brene Brown said. I mean, one of the most empathetic things you can do is to create boundaries and to hold people accountable,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because it's not necessarily just about how you're experiencing them, it's how they're experiencing themselves, right? And
Right,
if we don't help them to recognize that what you're saying is not how you're responding, right? Your actions and your words are two different things.
right.
Everything's fine. No, I'm here, right? Okay. Well, not everything's fine, right? Here's what I've been noticing. Here's some things that have been challenged. Well, that's not part of my job description, or, that wasn't why I was hired. And, you put this on me and those things like that, those are real things that people need to express. They need to feel comfortable expressing that to their boss rather than each other,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they need to see their boss take actionable steps to try to make those things happen so that they trust that their words are not going to be held against them, that they're actually going to be heard and appreciated, right? And so you're
Right.
right, it's not all on the boss, but a lot of it has to do with how the boss responds to those things. I mean, you and I were raised in the generation of rubbing some dirt on it and sucking it up and
Hmm.
moving forward and just grinning and bearing it and not having those difficult conversations, just, sighing and moving on because, life isn't always a bowl of cherries. But there's, especially the younger generations, no, that's not working for me. I want better. I want more, right? What you say is, you know, part of the job is not part of what I want, right? And how do I improve that? And so it really, like you said, there's no cookie cutter to it. It's really taking people for who they are in the place that they are, and recognizing if you have 12 staff, you have 12 individuals who all have different needs. Some have kids, some don't. Some like to go on vacation, some don't. Some have their parents paying to
Hmm.
go from, sometimes some don't, right? And so whatever those needs are, some people want money just to be able to buy cosplay outfits. Some
Hmm.
some people want movies, want to go to movies or Comic-Con, whatever it is, whatever people want to do, recognizing those needs and that people have different motivations. And so how can we tie in
Hmm.
what they do to how we can help them get there? And so just
Yeah.
thinking about those things
Um,
outside of the existential needs, but then also at the same time, right? Where do you want to be? How can we use this? Even if you don't plan on being here too long, if you hate it here, okay, cool. What skills, what abilities can we help you get while you're here, right? To be able to move to the place where you want to be. If your kid doesn't like it here, doesn't like living here, okay, cool. But what can you do? How can you take advantage of the fact that you don't pay rent, right? With my
right.
daughter, that I made a deal with her. You work and go to school, you don't have to pay rent. Well, she graduated,
Yes.
she's working, and now she's got enough money to be able to buy her own car, and then she's going to be moved, probably by next year or the year after when she finishes these two classes, right? She's going to, so she's taking advantage of the fact that she didn't have to pay rent by being able to be more, fiscally secure, right? So how do you take the place where maybe you have to follow some rules and do things maybe you don't want to do to be able to help you get to where you want to eventually be?
So this is where I again bring back the old phrase, stay in joy or leave in peace, right? Stay in joy or leave in peace. Feel like it's changing the world in any way, but it's a means to the end because there's something that I want or need I'm getting out of that job, whether it be like not living on the streets or being able to pay my car payments or buy groceries. And so like not every job or every career has to be like oh my gosh, this is so fulfilling for me in so many different ways. Like, if that's what you're looking for, I hate to tell you, but you'll probably be disappointed. But you can find ways to stay in joy and say, I don't love this job, but I can do it happily because it pays the bills and it serves its purpose until I find something that I'm more interested in. Like, I got into human services, I told you, for the air conditioning and the health insurance. I didn't get into it for any noble reasons. I wasn't looking to necessarily change the world. I just know that what I was doing, I didn't like it anymore and I wanted something different. But I made a career out of it because I really loved helping people with things that mattered. So, like, is it a lot of paperwork? Of course, it's government. Is it a lot of rules and regulations? Of course, it's government. I don't necessarily love those things, but I loved the ability to help people from the streets navigate through these really complicated systems and like try to get them what they needed in the easiest way. It was like a challenge for me. How do I make this the easiest as possible instead of as hard as possible? And so that kept me motivated for a really long time. But even in doing this work, I don't work for the county anymore. I don't work doing that type of work. I still am in the realm of human services because I'm interested in it, but I don't necessarily um again, you find what makes you come alive and then you do that. And then when it doesn't, you find something else. And you leave in peace. And you go, so I don't necessarily work with the public anymore, but I help the helpers, right? I help the helpers. I help the people who are helping the people. And I get a lot of joy out of that. And to me, it helps me stay in joy, even through, again, sitting outside 97-degree heat because the internet went out. Like I can do that because I know it's serving a purpose. And that motivates me, right? Connecting with other people is what motivates me in whatever capacity that is. So I can't say 20 years ago when I took the job that I was like, someday this is going to lead me down a road to a profession that I really love. It was a means to the end, but it kept me motivated because, again, my bills were paid, I had insurance, I could take care of my children, I had a steady schedule. I could stay in joy, even though I didn't always love the job. I could stay in joy because I knew what the alternative was. All right. And so for sometimes people at work, and I, I I go back to like this mentality where you rub some dirt in, you shake it off. Like there's a lot of times where the world was not employee friendly, right? There wasn't always the ability to leave your job and go find another one, right? Now that the world like is a bit more globalized and there's technology where you can live in one place and work in another, that wasn't always the case. And so I think like a lot of our generation is like, be grateful you have a job, be grateful you have a place to work and, do what your boss says, follow the rules, do what you're told, go above and beyond because that's the way that you're going to keep that employment until you retire and get the Rolex. And for a lot of the younger generations, they've always had the luxury of having lots of different options. And so, how do you make money now? It's not by loyalty to a company. A lot of companies pay the new hires more than the people who have been there for 20 years. And so, I watched a video the other day talking about like the best way to get a bonus is to switch employers. They'll pay you way more to start, and that's what a lot of people do for that upward mobility. So, is that saying, oh, they're not motivated? They don't stay with the company more than a year, or is it just good financial decision making? So I don't know, stay in joy or leave in peace. But part of that comes with some accountability. It's like you have to own your shit too, right? You really have to own like your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your perspective, your moods. Like you have to be able to own that too. I can hate my job and still come to work joyfully. I can come to work joyfully and still be a waste of payroll? Like um, just because I like what I do doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to be great at it. It's there's a lot of complexity to it, but I think there's like a delicate balance between like your it, leadership leadership responsibilities and creating an environment where people can come to work and do their job And I think there's equal responsibility to employees to take ownership of their own joy at work and advocate for what they need and ask for what they need. And if your employer is not able to meet you where you're at or what you're asking for from them, then by all means, go find somewhere else to work,
So
you know?
here we go. Same thing, right? What can we control,
Right.
right? What's one thing we can't control? We can't control the attitude of our staff. If we do the best that we can, right? We can control how we are open, honest, getting to know our staff, trying to support them in every way, being good listeners, being good coaches, right? Using the techniques that, are proven to work most of the time. And then you're still going to have people who reject it. You're still going to have people who don't trust it, for many different reasons, right? Oh, yeah, I had a boss who told me it was going to happen and they fired me, right? Or, I had a boss that told me to trust him and then harassment or whatever else it was, right? So there's a lot of reasons why people put up walls and people have walls regardless of, I mean, you can be the best case manager in the world and you might not have a client who responds to you because, hey, my last, you know, case manager didn't give two craps about me and my family, right? So there's many reasons outside of your effort that people are going to choose. There's some people who just don't want to work, period. And so whatever job they
Mm-hmm.
go into, they're going to be miserable about it. They'd rather be home doing whatever else there is that is at home rather than being at a job, even if they're good at it and enjoy doing it. Right. And so that is totally out of your control. What is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to, as a leader, is to provide that environment that people are invited into to feel supported, where they can thrive and be engaged. And if you are doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying, and usually you're going to see the majority of your folks buy into it, right? If you're doing that correctly, very rarely will people, mutiny on you, right? But you will have, one or two, three people who just do not want to do what you're asking them to do, no matter how consistent and how much integrity you have. And so at the end of the day, you're right. It is their responsibility. But if you're one of the people who say, I don't trust it, then you are a big part of the problem, right? So being in that role, and the problem is, as a manager, you have people from above you that are going to disappoint you and disillusion you and
Mm-hmm.
break your trust, right? And that's definitely something that's going to happen, especially in government service, right? Sometimes we have to wait for that person above us, and sometimes that person above us is not, the person that we would want to be above us in terms of providing the level of service and support. But and the further you go up, the harder it is because you might have one or two people above you and you have hundreds of people below you, and they're all waiting for you, and you can't move because of that one person above you. I had a coaching
Yeah.
situation where that happened, and I told the person, well, think about, what it is that you're getting from that one person or not getting from them, and how is that affecting everyone beneath you? So what do you mean? How is it affecting them? I said, well,
Mm-hmm.
what would you be doing for those other people if you had more support from your direct supervisor? Well, I'd be doing this, I'd be doing that, I'd be doing this, I'd be doing that. I said, okay, cool. So how much of that can you do now without the support of your supervisor? Well, I guess there's certain things that I could do. I said, okay. So is that something that you said you kind of feel like, you're spinning your wheels? What are some things that you can do now without the support of your supervisor
Mm-hmm.
that will support all of those people beneath you, your directs, their directs, and their directs, which got the ball rolling on worrying about what I can control. What I can control is this whole organization underneath me. What I cannot control is that one person giving me their blessing because I can't predict it, right? So what are things I can do without their blessing?
Mm-hmm.
I can create the culture that I want. I can provide support. I can work on ways to make people feel, less overworked and more appreciated, more engaged. right? So those are things that leadership requires. It's not just an either or. If you are leading other people and you want people to feel supported, if you want people to stay, if you want people to, to be in a position where they are working towards being their best, it starts with your environment allowing for that to happen.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. It's just a constant, delicate dance that we do, and I think where
It ain't
people
easy.
start to take more, yeah, where people start to take like a more proactive approach to their own growth and their own necessity and advocate for what they need. And by the way, in a lot of companies, you don't need permission to do every single little thing. Like sometimes you can just quietly do what needs to get done that's in line with the vision and in line with like the expectations. You don't necessarily need permission from anybody. And I think that like for employers, when people are you know, being creative and being brave to figure things out, to give them a little bit of leeway to make mistakes and kind of test the waters without fear of retribution or getting in trouble, which is
Say
what
that 10 times
everybody's all
fast.
afraid of. What if I get in trouble? Huh?
Say that 10 times fast. Say it 10 times fast. Retribution, retribution, retribution.
Retribution, retribution, retribution. I can't even say it one time slow. So, but like honestly, I tell people like, why wouldn't you try this? And they're like, oh, I'll get in trouble. Like, what trouble are you really going to get into? And they're like, oh, my supervisor's going to call me and talk to me. Like, oh my gosh, a conversation that must be so hard. Like, I have apparently, maybe I need to be a little bit more relaxed with that. But I really do kind of sometimes wonder, like, what trouble are you going to get into? I don't really necessarily think your job is that online, an uncomfortable conversation. Like, so what?
Yeah.
So what? But I'm brave though. So I spent a lot of time in the principal's office, as you know. It's not a secret. I'm 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 okay with getting in trouble, I guess.
That's called good trouble.
Good trouble. It is good trouble
You know.
for sure.
All
For
right.
sure.
So Tiff, do we have any hot tips on the way out?
Hot tips. Number one, figure out what motivates you. Like find out like what you need to be happy. Like pay attention to like when you're in your flow state. Pay attention to where it doesn't take a lot of energy to start something. Um, Figure out like what drives you, like what's important to you. This might be through exploring your values. This might be just being observant of like what you gravitate towards or what you gravitate away from. So just get to know yourself. As a leader, I would say pay attention to what motivates other people, right? Pay attention to their needs. And again, do a little bit of trial and error on what is going to be helpful and not helpful, and just know there's no one size fits all. Um, you have to be willing to be flexible with your people. And pay people by all means. Pay people money. Pay people money for the stuff that they do. Offer them opportunities to stretch and grow. Maybe it's not a promotion, but maybe new opportunities to do new work. But do not exploit people. Don't exploit people. Pay them their worth, and imagine what you could get out of people when they feel like they're being valuable. You know, I'm just saying, show me the money. It's not all money, but show me the money. Show me the money and give me value for the work that I do. Let me know it matters. Those are my hot tips for the day. What about you? What do you?
I have a recommendation of the week.
Ooh,
Yeah. New what do you call it? New
new segment.
content. New segment, thank you. New segment. All right. The recommendation of the week is to go see Fantastic Four. Very good movie. Very very engaging. Don't go in the D box though. We did the D box seats, where they move around. There's not a lot of moving around in that. All right. So if you're gonna go see a D box movie, go see F1. But go see Fantastic Four. It's different. It's good, and you'll enjoy yourself.
Good. And I have one little hot tip too. Drink some water.
Okay.
It's hot outside.
Oh,
Drink some
hydrate,
water.
y'all. Yeah.
I'm fighting with that. We're still in somewhat like pleasant weather. This summer here in the desert has been unusually pleasant. And every pleasant day that passes by without the extreme heat and the extreme humidity, I like get nervous. Like, is August just going to be dreadful? Like every nice day that passes, I'm like, are we saving it all up for like a couple of weeks? But I have been really trying to prioritize drinking water because even though it's not incredibly hot, I know I need to keep hydrated. I don't keep this taut skin by being dehydrated. That's how I stay wrinkle free. I drink my water.
Yeah. I drink three of these a day. So yeah. Right. Well, stay hydrated, stay cool, stay
And
cool
go watch a good
forever.
movie.
All right. And until then, I'm Carl.
I'm Tiff. Keep it real.
And enjoy, keep it real and enjoy your summertime.
Summertime.
I just sit back and say bye bye.
Say bye-bye. That's as much singing as you're
I'm
gonna get
keeping
out of me.
that in. I'm keeping that in.